First Things First is sponsored by Gillette, the best a man can get.
Hi, everyone. Morning. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. This right here is Nick Wright. This right here is a Chris. It's a different one. This is Chris Broussard, who's in for Chris Carter.
What up, man?
Who's spending some time at the Hall of Fame. No, but in our minds, you are.
I bet you
I don't know. Actually, I'm in my high school Hall of Fame.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew there was a Hall of Fame you were in
Not quite
somewhere.
It's in Ohio, though.
But you know what?
Holy name.
There's no Hall of Fame shaming. This is Hall of Famer Chris Broussard.
Well, it is great to have you here today. Thanks so much for being with us. We got a lot to get to on this Friday show. LeBron James is shocked by his former general manager's comments. Baker Mayfield is coming for Big Ben, and the Steelers and the Cowboys are still Zeke-less. We are more than a week into Ezekiel Elliott's holdout, and it appears as if there will be more hold and there will be more out. The two sides remain far apart, but that doesn't concern Jerry Jones, who said yesterday he's not worried about a timeline for Zeke's return. Around the league, though, people are reportedly scratching their heads, puzzled about the way the Cowboys have handled this. More on that in a sec. Jerry said he's confident this will work out.
You worried about this not getting done?
I don't consider, no, I don't in any way, we're never ever not done one.
Okay.
So I don't worry about that.
In the words of Nick Wright, speak less, Jerry. It will help you as these carry on. All right, Nick, who do you think blinks first? Will it be Ezekiel Elliott or Jerry Jones?
Well, I mean, I'll just take Jerry's word for it. He's got a reputation to uphold. And the reputation is these deals get done. The way to make sure it gets done is he blinks. I mean, he didn't say, hey, how long have I been around? Do I budge? No, I don't. No, he said, have I not got one done? We know how he can get one done. Come up on the number, come up on the guarantees, maybe come up on the years. According to Jane Slater, they were miles apart on everything. Bridge the gap on at least some of those things. Ezekiel Elliott is in a very unique position with this particular team and this particular owner because they do have questions about how good their quarterback really is, because their owner is as invested in winning as any owner in professional sports, not just financially, but personally, and because their owner, like I think a lot of people, and I don't say this lightly at all, like a lot of people as they get older, they start thinking about legacy. They start thinking about how I will be remembered. And Jerry Jones, we know, he's not an insecure guy, but has always had a little bit of a, I won 3 titles. And it's not Jerry Jones's titles, it's Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson's titles. It's 2 double J's there. And this would be Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones's titles. This would be him and his son, rather than him and a coach that he had a falling out with. And so I think Zeke does have enormous leverage in this very unique situation if he will hold the line. So if someone's going to blink, I think it would be Jerry Jones.
See, I think Zeke is the best running back in the game. I take him over Barkley, Bell, all of them. I think he's that good. However, I don't think he has all the leverage. And I think the things Jerry said, now yesterday what he said, that comment, that was probably the most conciliatory comment he's made, that, you know, when have I not gotten it done? But up to that point, everything they're saying, he and Steven, suggests they're going to play hardball. And the fact that they went out and signed Alfred Morris, obviously he's not Zeke, but they also drafted 2 running backs in the draft. Why? I don't think they definitely didn't foresee Zeke holding out, but they did foresee down the line maybe this could get hairy and we may have to part ways. You hear Jerry Jones quoting analytics type stuff, right? Where do you think he's getting that from? Stephen Jones, I think, has more say now in terms of the finances and how they're going to spend the money. That's been a good thing for them, but I think that's different than the past. Here's how I would play it, honestly. And I haven't heard many people say this. I would, unless Zeke comes, you know, back to camp, I would go ahead and start the season without him. They got 3 of the projected to be the worst teams in the league to start. The Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins. You should be able to beat them even without Zeke, okay, if you're a Super Bowl contender. And see how your running game looks in those games. Even if you win the games, but your running game isn't good, then I think that's when you go back and get Zeke, just like they did with Emmitt Smith back in 1993. But look, Tony Pollard, I think, has some promise. I'm not saying any of these guys are Zeke. Mike Weber has some promise. The offensive line is one of the greatest in the league. And you're going to have a new offensive coordinator, so a little bit of a revamped offense.
So here's where because of who they play early, here's one of the reasons I think it plays into Zeke's favor, not the Cowboys' favor. When you have Giants, Washington, and Miami as your first 3 games, and you do want to be a Super Bowl team, you have to go 3-0. You cannot start 1-2. You can't, and I disagree with you that without Zeke, they
shouldn't beat those teams without Zeke?
Without Zeke, to me, they and the Giants it's a 60-40 proposition, Cowboys. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback for Washington. I don't know if it's going to be rookie Dwayne Haskins immediately. And in Miami, I happen to be one of the few people. I like Josh Rosen. Now, it looks like maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the guy, but we also know Fitzpatrick is someone who, for moments in time, can be brilliant, and then moments in time be the worst starting quarterback in the league. If they start off 1-2 with that being their opening 3 games, their season's over. And so it's a hell of a gamble to say, because I would almost feel better about playing hardball with Zeke if I started at New England, home for the Saints. Because it's like, you know what? With or without Zeke, we might lose those games. Let's see how we look. The Cowboys are in a position where if they're trying to get to the 11 wins it's probably going to take to win that division, 3 of them have to come in that first month. And I just think this offense, we saw them for 6 games without Ezekiel Elliott when he was suspended. Now, they didn't have Amari Cooper. I understand that.
They didn't have some of the offensive line as well.
Correct. Agreed. But they also, and Tyron Smith missed the beginning of that stretch. And in those first 3 games of those 6, they scored 22 points total. And the other element here is they want to pay Dak. One of the reasons they want to pay Dak is the confidence for Dak, all these things.
Sure.
Last year, he started the year with a stacked deck against him to a degree because he had no wide receivers. If he starts this year with no Ezekiel Elliott, does that set a bad trend for him for the season?
The contradiction that bothers me is the one that we keep hearing sometimes with Jerry Jones and Zeke's side, but we haven't heard anything from Zeke. So all we're hearing is from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. So Jerry Jones comes out yesterday and said, you know me, I'm going to get a deal done. Stephen Jones, who we'll also talk about a little bit later, came out and said the Cowboys don't want to be handing out any record-setting contracts. If I'm Ezekiel Elliott's team, I hear that and I say, we're nowhere near anywhere, because if we want to start at Todd Gurley's number, this is going to be a record-setting contract. So I think between Jerry and Steven, they both need to get on the same page of how they're going to handle it.
Well, I think Steven's going to be, obviously Jerry has the final say, but I think he's going to give Steven the leeway to do what he wants to do financially. That's been good for this team. And look, the bottom line is, as much as I like Ezekiel Elliott, the analytics and everything say you don't need to overpay your running back. And he's a great one. That's why I would wait and see. We've seen Chris Carson last year in Seattle, 7th-round pick. Philip Lindsay, undrafted rookie. C.J. Anderson fills in admirably for Todd Gurley. We've seen so many running backs just come out of nowhere. I would give Weber and Pollard a try behind this offensive line against those 3 weak teams.
So here's the counter to that, because I believe in the numbers entirely, and I think teams, even in the most pass-happy time in NFL history, teams aren't passing enough. I think people are, you set up the play action by establishing the run. That's actually a myth. The whole, you need 30, if you run the ball 30 times, you always win. Well, that's because you get the lead passing, you hold the lead running. I agree with all of that. And I understand the philosophy of you can get 80% of the production for 10% of the cost, kind of what you're talking about, right? I think the Dallas Cowboys need 100% of the production. And I think that bridge between 80% and 100% for this team with that limited of a quarterback in a year they truly think they can win back-to-back playoff games for the first time in, gosh, I think the first time in 20 years, you cannot go into the season with an arm tied behind your back. And to Jenna, to your point, they shouldn't give Dak a record-setting deal. They shouldn't give Amari a record-setting deal. Zeke's got to be sitting there saying, but you should give me one, because to Chris's point, I'm the best running back in football, so I actually should be paid like the best running back in football.
Here's a crazy idea. Go get Melvin Gordon. Give him $10 million a year. And then see what happens. Take a break. Coming up, LeBron James firing back at his former GM. That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on Sirius XM. We're back right after this.